Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, my name is Botswana from the Analyse Online. Today, we have visited your office to get your views on the arrest of Isaac Kgosi, who worked under administration for the longest time, we understand. He was once your private secretary. He was later on, you made him the DI's boss when you were still president. He was recently fired. And then on the 15th, on Tuesday, he was arrested in public view for the issues that are still to be clarified to us. But we have had issues of tax evasion, and we've had your name cropping up several times in other articles. But can you today let us know how you feel about it, what is your reaction to it, and what do you make of that arrest?
I think I felt about the arrest what many other people did. Disappointment, shock,
Yes.
surprise in the manner in which it was carried out. Like you, I don't have any details or information as to why there had to be arrest in the first place. But what was very strange and unusual for Botswana was to arrest somebody in that manner in front of his family at an international airport where we obviously had visitors from other countries present. That is something which is scary, if I can put it like that, that could actually happen in Botswana. And the organization, the DIS who carried it out, and the invitation for the media to be present. Because as an intelligence organization, the DIS do not openly broadcast their operations and things that they do. So why on this occasion did they do it in that manner?
Is it a question that you would like to try and answer?
No, I know the answer.
You leave it to...
They were instructed to do it in that manner. From what I hear.
Oh, okay.
It was an instruction because...
You were instructed to invite the media?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Kgosi, I know, Gyamwitsi. He's a professional. I worked with him in the BDF. He was an extremely hard worker. He was extremely efficient. And he's not the kind, and he's also modest and humble. So that high-profile event is not him, Hussein. And it has been put out there that he was instructed to do so. And I sincerely believe it was an instruction to go about the arrest the way it happened. And I'm still waiting to hear what was the follow-up. Because, you know, I've been in government for many years. I've been in the security services for many years. I know how things are supposed to be done. And when you are going to jump on someone like that, it's when you pretty much got conclusive evidence that this person has done something wrong for you to do that. Otherwise, normally, like when we hear it was a tax issue, DIS doesn't come in on tax issues. And if you or I have been in arrears with our taxes, you'll get a letter from BURS or a visit where they will confront you in your office. So even in this case, they would have said, let's go to your house, we want to ask you some questions. Or go to your office, we have questions for you. So for now, one hasn't heard if, as a result of that arrest, any charges have been preferred on him. We heard about searches, because some of the searches were done again in front of the media. Was anything found? I haven't heard that anything has been found so far. So then, if they were so certain that he had done something wrong, to then effect such a high-profile arrest in that manner, why was it done?
According to you, it was, how can I put it? It was wrong to have done it the way they did it.
This is Botswana.
Yes.
You know, this is not Saudi Arabia. This is not China. This is not the DRC. This is not Sudan. We have a reputation that I spent 10 years when I was in office trying to build up. There was something I always used to watch on an annual basis, was Botswana's ratings and its rankings on democracy and its freedoms. And I'm pleased to say that we were constantly improving, because I think that as a country we had to be a role model. A beacon of light is what sometimes some ambassadors who came to present credentials to me used to talk about. An example to follow. And you know, it takes long. And it started with my predecessors. I'm not saying it started with me. I was just building up on top of what foundation they had laid. And a good foundation that they had laid, I must say. So it was to continue in that light and portray Botswana as the democracy, for its democracy, its stability, and its observance of human rights. And that is something we must jealously guard. So when you do anything in that manner, high profile, you must think about some of the negative consequences which could follow. So my plea to them, if you're going after people, make sure that it is for justifiable reasons, not for trumped up charges. But we'll see what comes of it as time goes on.
So as of now, you haven't had anything from Isaac Kgosi, or you haven't met him or talked to him?
Indeed, I've met him since that arrest, yes. Because someone who has gone through such a traumatic experience, I think as I've known him, as you know, for many years, I went to see him and his family just to give them my reassurance and my support. Whatever comes of this, just know that there are people out there, and I'm not the only one. And I know there have been other people who have spoken to him, who have visited him, including government officials, who have also shared with him their support for what they're through, and to express their revulsion at how he was treated.
Okay. So some allegations have cropped up during this process in Khama, that your name has been cropping up, that there are deals that you have been doing with Isaac Kgosi that are dodgy, and maybe very soon they'll be coming after you. What do you have to say about it? Also,
they can come after me. It would be very sad. I know every day I lead my life the way I've done over the years. When I was in office, there would be a lot of allegations that came from the media. And I think you may remember I once said that, you know, one of the reasons why at that time I wasn't motivated to read newspapers was because when they used to write about me, falsehoods, false stories, because I know what I'm doing in my life, and you see in a newspaper them saying I'm doing something that I know I have not done, then you say, well, what's the point? Because maybe the other stories in that newspaper about other people or other events are probably just as false. So when you read and pick up a newspaper, that is what you want. You want news based on fact, not news which is made up. So you haven't mentioned what these other things are that I'm supposed to be doing with Kgosi. I may invite you.
Business deals.
I'm not in business
Apparently.
with him. I don't share any business deals with Kgosi.
Okay. Apparently there has been an issue that cropped up just before the arrest of Isaac Kgosi, that there was a certain country, namely Israel, that you two were working with to set up your own intelligence to help you in fighting the battles that are currently ongoing in the BDP, the fictional wars.
I am not, I want to put it out there, I'm
Yes.
not fighting any battles with the BDP.
Yes.
The BDP is my party. And when I was in office, I went to great lengths to try to unite the BDP. When those who left the BDP to form the BMD, when that event came about, it was soon after that that we put in place measures to ensure that, because it was something that came as a result of the factions that we had at the time. And I, along with others in the BDP, managed to do away with those factions. In the last 3 years of my term in office, I traversed this country visiting the BDP structures, so that at the time I handed over, I would hand over a party which was united, which had structures which were starting to come together and do the work we expected of them, so that as we go towards the elections, which are not too far off now, we would be in a good place. So there's no way that I would be trying to form an intelligence unit against others in the BDP. As you know, I'm not in any of the structures of the BDP. I'm just an ordinary member of the BDP, and I have offered myself to help in the campaign for the 2019 election, and that offer has been taken up by some of the BDP candidates who have asked me to come and help them in their particular constituencies. So this thing of an intelligence unit, this thing Yama Israel, is totally, totally false. I want you to hear that from me. And even if I can expand to go on to the Sunday Standard article, where it was talking about Israelis and coups. In Botswana, we don't do coups. We have not had any inkling of a coup in the last 52 years. And I will put my head on the block and say that there will not even be in the next 52 years any attempt of a coup in this country. If people don't like the current leader or his government, nobody in this country who doesn't support him or the government would resort to coup. And all of us, including myself, would oppose any attempt at trying to remove the leader or the government in an undemocratic way, in an unconstitutional way. So, like I say, we have spent all these years trying to make what Botswana is today. And we are proud of our country. So whether it's a coup in Botswana or in any other country, we've always stood and said, these are things we don't support. We don't support them. And I would never ever support any attempt to coup this country. But it having been said, what concerns me more than the article is who would sponsor an article of that nature.
So
that's what concerns me even more.
Article.
Of course it was.
By?
You only have to look at the headline.
Yes.
All right?
Yes, sir.
Because then what happens when it is sponsored in that manner? What do the Israelis think? We have diplomatic relations with Israel. The danger is there. We could undermine those relations we have. What do the Israelis think? Because I'm sure, and like I'm saying, It's a lot of nonsense that the Israelis would be somehow been trying to be involved in some kind of a coup, more Botswana. Secondly, what about the BDF? Because in most countries, the only people who carry out coups are the military. So by suggesting there could be a coup, are they questioning the professionalism and the loyalty of the BDF? That is extremely unfortunate, because every one of those people are patriots. That's why they're in the BDF, to defend this country and to defend its democracy. That's why I was there. So to try and suggest that could be a coup is also trying to suggest that those in the army could be thinking about such things, or could be used to bring about such things. And even if there are people who are going to come out from outside, whoever they were, and invade us, maybe they are trying to suggest the Israelis, then where would the BDF? Are they trying to suggest the BDF would just sit there and let it happen? So it's very extreme when people make such irresponsible, put out such irresponsible articles and sponsor them to look good.
What do you think is the motive behind this sponsored article?
And that's a very good question.
Yes.
You know, what bothers me, I think there's more behind it than meets the eye. It's a build-up to something. Because when you talk about coups, you're talking about something treasonable. So is it being used as an excuse to start preparing the nation? Then you start locking up and arresting your opponents. It's going to be under the guise that it's because there was a coup which is being planned. So otherwise, I'm telling you, as I sit here, having been in the leadership of this government right up until not that long ago, coup was not a word which was in the vocabulary of Botswana. And even today, I can say to you with confidence, no Botswana would ever want to hear that word uttered in this country. So for people to be putting it out there is extremely unfortunate and destabilizing.
Okay.
And anyone who tries to take credit that they were able to thwart a coup, I'm telling you, they are misleading the nation.
Okay. You're bringing me to an interesting issue that erupted last week when Isaac Kgosi was arrested. He uttered the words that I would topple this government when he was whisked away in a GI's car. What do you make of his words, and what can you say about those threats?
Well, first of all, those words which are reported, I heard about them.
Yes.
But in the 2 meetings I had with him, I didn't ask him about those words.
Okay.
So I can't answer the question. What do I think about the words? Well, topple could mean toppling. How Boko has been talking about toppling this government for a long time. And previous opposition leaders have always talked about toppling this government. So I don't know what his intentions were. But then I would imagine he must have been going through a very emotional time. Maybe he used the wrong words. Maybe he was angry. Maybe he lost his temper. You have to put yourself in his situation, having undergoing such serious provocation and unjust just treatment in the way he was done. Taking him off to the military camp where, as far as I'm aware, where he was detained. Military camps are not used to detain members of the public. As far as I know, that is illegal. I don't know if they got some court order that permitted them to hold someone in a military barracks.
But let's move to the next question. I'm going to ask this one and deliberately.
I'm worried by the smile when you say that.
I'm doing it deliberately because it's been something that has been set out there since you stepped down. Many Botswana have been saying you're one of our presidents who's ruled with an iron fist. You've terrorized the media. You never wanted to work with the media in your tenure, and you oppressed the civil servants. Today I want you to clarify on those issues and say what you feel, and how did you really work with all these people that I mentioned?
Could you just mention those people again, because you were
the media,
quite fast, yeah.
some alleged you didn't want to work with the media. You closed your doors. You shut your door to them. You imposed advertising ban. And then the civil servants also have something to say about you, and the only thing they say is that you are very oppressive, especially the unions. They didn't work well with you. I want to get it from you today and hear it out. How was your working relationship with these people, and what do you take home in this comments?
I will not try to deny that relations with the media were not cordial.
Okay.
And I think I've tried to say why or justify why in the past when I think that I was treated badly by the media because of the articles that they wrote not being accurate. You may remember at one event, I think it was at the Donota Congress, I said something about Donald Trump, who always talks about fake news. And I said, no, Donald Trump should know that fake news was actually invented in Botswana. You remember that? And when you see some of the very things we are talking about today, which have come out in the media recently, I stick to those words. That I have been a victim of deliberate attempts, because I was told this by some in the media, because I say some in the media, I don't brush everybody across the board and say they're all responsible for it. Who would come and tell me and say there are deliberate attempts to discredit you? So that's why stories will come out about you which are totally false. It's an attempt to discredit. So under those kind of circumstances, you're not going to have a good relationship. But whenever I was asked, and I'd ask you to go back and look, there were times when I gave interviews when they were asked for. And I gave interviews when someone, like even now, when people come forward and they say they want to ask me this question, that question, even just before you came in here today, my acting private secretary was telling me that there are 2 other media houses which would like to conduct interviews with me. And I've said, fine, I will meet them.
But did you try and find out what were the motives behind this fake news articles that were orchestrated against you?
Like I said, I was told, I can only, based on what I was told, was that the idea was to discredit myself. And there were some in the media, and I suppose it's not unique to Botswana. There would be journalists, even a whole media publication, which would have a political agenda. So if you go to countries like in the UK or even the United States, it is known that a particular publication would be supporting the Conservative Party, another one supports the Labour Party, and I guess to a certain extent we have that element here as well. So if there are those who, either an individual who supports an opposition party or a publication, then they will go out of their way to try to discredit you. Because otherwise, some of those journalists will just put out stories without even checking with me for those facts. And you say, but then why would they do that? Why would they issue a story which is not true? And they didn't even have the courtesy to try and establish facts. On the civil servants, I used to go around when I was doing Khote meetings. And as often as possible, I'd also meet civil servants to hear from them what their issues were. And I would just remind you that when I was doing some of my farewell tours, there were civil servants who also spoke, and they recounted how I had interacted with them and how they had benefited when we put in place certain measures to try to improve their living conditions as public officers. So where there was, I agree, differences of opinion, as you correctly said, it was with some of the unions. Again, some of the unions. And that was always a matter about over conditions of service and salaries. And we just were not able to meet to their expectation, the type of salary increases or conditions that they would want. And we were hampered, of course, by budget considerations. It always came down to budget considerations. And I always said that look, we have to know that what we give to public officers must also be in line with what we use the budget for to benefit other Botswana. So when you see such a big slice of our budget, government budget, goes to civil servant salaries, it's something that has to be kept in context.
Okay. One of the questions that has always been asked again: how is your relationship currently with the current president of the Republic of Botswana, Ramokgweetsi Mosisi?
Well, nothing has really changed from the last time I was asked that question.
Yeah. You're still not in good terms.
You know, I would like in him, Remasisi, there is someone who I knew when he was my vice president. And that someone was the person I spoke about during my farewell tours. I don't know whether it's the pressures of office, the stresses that come with it, the challenges that come with it. And there are also people I know who would try to fuel differences between us, trying to drive a wedge. Whatever it is something which you have heard about. And I just hope one day that person I knew will, that person, I apologize for the phone ringing, that person I knew, or the person I thought I knew, will be able to reach out.
What is the kind of Masisi that you know? How is the kind of Masisi that you're talking about right now, that you knew?
I once described him that I looked upon him as a brother and a friend. I used those words, and I remember those words. And I wouldn't have used those words, I wasn't just saying it. Because, you know, when you choose someone to be your vice president, it is someone who you feel you can trust, you have their loyalty, you have their support, which is something he showed me. You know, the programs and the policies that we put in place, he supported. And he would go out there, even when he had the opportunity to talk about them in public, he would be selling them just as vigorously as I would. So I really cannot say what transpired after the 1st of April to bring about this situation that we are experiencing, going through, where he goes around talking to people in the party, calling people for meetings to talk about me, giving his side of the story, and I'm never given an opportunity to respond or to put across my side of the story. But recently, I think it was the vice president who went to Palapi, who met elders, sent, I'm told, by Masisi to talk to them again about his side of the story. And they've since made contact with me to say, Horenya, we want to hear your side of the story. So they're coming to, those elders in Palapi. Yes. So they're coming to see me.
That was sent by Tsohani this weekend?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So they have asked to come to see me, and I'm meeting them. And where I'm going to ask them what was said to you, so that I can then respond and give them my side of the story. But you know, at the end of the day, this toing and froing can go on. It's not good for the country, it's not good for the party.
How is it?
And I feel, you know, very saddened that the state that I left the country and party in is no longer what it is today as it was then. And if there was a way that I could try to, what you call it, address it, to put it straight, that would be an opportunity I would welcome. But it takes two to tango.
Okay. Have you ever made any attempt to maybe to have a one-on-one with Ramasisi?
He, the time when the elders came to see me, I said to them, and I hope they would quote me correctly, I said to them, he didn't even need to call you to come and get me to meet with him. He could have just picked up the phone and said, can we meet? And there've been any number of people who have come here and after hearing me have said they're going to go back to him and say, pick up the phone and call for a meeting. That has never happened. So you can reach your own conclusions from that. For my part, I'm out of the government. I'm not in any party structure. I'm doing my charitable work. I'm doing some of my Kgosi work. I'm doing my conservation work. And I'm going to do that every day. I have committed myself for many years to caring for people in different roles, whether it was in the military, whether it's in politics, or even now.
Do you have
And
any
no one
plans there?
and nothing on earth is going to stop me doing that, because I believe it is my Christian duty to care for people, and I will continue doing that.
I hear you saying that. Is there anyone who is against your charitable events or the works that you've been doing since you left office of the president?
Murupisi, he'll come here to my office.
Come.
He'll come here. He's been here a couple of times.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in the last almost year.
Yeah.
And say to me, they want the housing appeal to go back to OP. Without any reasons. Said it started off there. I said, yes, it was my initiative. Because Ghana we are recession. When I realized that a recession, as bad as it is for the economy, can be even worse for people, especially poor people. And government, because it had a limited budget, was not able to do as much as I would have liked it to do because of that shrinking budget. So I started this housing appeal to then ask the private sector to come on board, and we could be building houses for destitute people. And I announced before I left office that I was going to continue this housing appeal, but change the name. It wouldn't be President's Housing Appeal, it would be National Housing Appeal. As one of the charitable organizations that I had started, I'll continue. He wants it back there. I said, form your own. You can do your own housing appeal. And I'm not the only one building houses for destitutes. There are many others. So why don't you call all the others and tell them you want it under OP? He doesn't have an answer for that, because this thing is targeted just at me. So, Grahure, he unfortunately has taken a very bad attitude towards me.
But as the man that you've been working with for you worked under your administration.
You know how much I'm learning today about people who I work with?
That. And I think many people would like to know that too.
Exactly. And
yes.
I don't have the answer, but there is a character flaw in some people that I never, even at this stage of my life, knew existed, where people you work with, people you put there, turn against you. And it's just remarkable. It's just something I've never experienced in my life before. But I'm just talking about a handful of people. The vast majority of people, wherever I go, are just the same, because they haven't changed their attitude towards me, whether they like me or they didn't like me, but their attitude hasn't changed. But you've got this handful of people who have showed this character flaw in them, which is so unfortunate.
Do you have any regrets about the choice of your vice president? By then.
I had 3 vice presidents.
The one who is currently the president. And a lot has
I have an answer
changed.
to that question.
Please
And it's a
answer it.
very simple and straightforward answer. And I think you know the answer.
Ever.
But I'm not going to give you that answer.
Why?
Because I still hope
Okay.
that the situation can be resolved. There can be a reconciliation.
You believe so?
Because I'm not a vindictive person.
Oh, okay.
And I think I've proven in the past that people who moved against me, I never moved against them. They moved against me. That I showed later on, when things changed for the better, that I didn't hold it against them, that I could embrace them and move on. And that is what I'm still hoping will happen. When it will happen, I have no idea when it will happen.
But what if it drags on for some time, or for the longest time?
Well, personally, it may sound selfish for me to say so, but I'm not the one who has the most to lose by that going on.
Oh.
You've already indicated the situation, the unpleasantness, the atmosphere that exists in the country, which isn't a good one. And we're going towards an election. And one would think that if you are going to compete in an election, you would try to embrace and reach out to people, whether you like them or not. You just do that because it's necessary to do that. You don't perpetuate battles, as you referred to earlier on, with other people. You know, it's not just about me. There are others who are caught up in this, and I just can see that we are not in a good space right now.
It brings me to this question. Of recent, we've seen elders of the BDP coming out to say they support Ramasisi, they don't in some way support what you're doing. And I have always, to those that we talked about, the latest being of last week, I've asked them, do they feel it's proper or it's safe and even healthy for us as the country for now to be saying, to be running behind someone and not the former president or the current president, and saying we're taking sides? And they said yes.
Are these some of the elders who were sent by Masisi to see me?
I think some of them yes.
Some of them yes.
Some of them yes.
So then we shouldn't be surprised, because when the elders came to see me, there were 5 of them. I didn't choose them. I wasn't consulted. I was just told that this group of elders who have been asked by Masisi to come and see me. And after I told them everything that had been going on, I said to them, I think it's only fair that in a process of mediation between 2 parties, the 2 parties should agree on who the mediators would be. But I don't have a problem with any of you. But I just like to have someone from my side in there with you. And I'm not going to ask for 5 people. I'm only going to ask for 1 person. And I said it should be Park Staff, my lawyer. So when you go to see Masisi, please, I'd like him. And they agreed that he could be part of them. And then they met with Parks. I then briefed Parks about everything as well. He met with them. And then they went to see Masisi. And they left Dafa behind. So you then say, what's happening? They agreed that he would be part of them. I wanted him in there. and they left him out. So then you wonder whether, in fact, what I had said to them was fully represented the way I had expressed it. And that's why I'd asked only one person, not more than one, just to be part of the team. So it doesn't come as a surprise now that some of them may be saying what they are saying, because it just seems to show to me that, hey, these people, maybe some of them had a bias before or at the time they were meeting me. But elders are people who normally would be there that you can fall back on when there's a problem to try and solve the problem. I only met with them once collectively. So I don't think in a mediation process, one meeting, you can solve everything. My expectation was there would be a constant traffic, not every day or every week necessarily, between us until we finally got to where we were. So when he said in the State of the Nation that things hadn't gone well, but he was still relying on the elders at some point, but he had already disbanded them by then anyway. So they have their opinions, and that's.
Rakam, do you still love the BDP?
Do I? Very much so. Very much. Like I said, before, that I'm a member of the BDP. I'm not in the structures, but the BDP is my party. And I have a lot of loyalty, and I've said before, and I'm saying it again now, that I would, if I'm invited, campaign for the party. It may not be the party that invites me, but even if it's a candidate, I will help them out.
With the current status that you are in with the current president, who is also the president of the party, or the leader of the party right now, it's questionable. Is it good for the BDP?
So I didn't understand the question. Is what good for the BDP? Having a leader?
No, the status that you are currently in with the current president, who you have left in charge of the BDP right now.
That question I'll answer in the same way when you asked me whether I had any regrets.
Yes.
So I'll pass on that one for now, in the interest of hoping that there will be a positive outcome to this current impasse.
We are about to finish, but I will not have done myself justice if I don't ask this question. Have you ever worked with anyone from outside the party, to be specific on this one, Reboko, to sponsor a motion of no confidence against Ramesses?
The first and only time I met with Boko was to ask him to seek his advice, legal advice, on the matter of Colonel Kgosi being denied the opportunity to be my private secretary. So working with him, I would have been seen on other occasions visiting him or him visiting me and so on, and sitting down and working out something of that nature. So that was the only time. And the reason why at that time I used Boko was because my own lawyer was out of the country.
So you've never sponsored any motion of no confidence?
I can't sponsor a motion of no confidence, not being a member of parliament anyway.
Lastly, what do you make of the current DIS that is led by Isaac Kgosi, that has done what it has done on Tuesday, and the DIS that you had in your administration that was led by Isaac Kgosi?
I can only comment about during the period of my administration,
Yes, sir.
because there would of course be interaction with them. Currently, I am not privy to the operations that they conduct on behalf of the state. But at that time, I was satisfied in the manner in which they conducted their operations. During that period, the country was kept safe from those who would have wanted to do us harm, whether from internal sources or external sources. But like I said earlier on about Kgosi, that I have confidence that he will continue keeping this country safe. My only appeal to him, other government agencies who have got powers given to them under the law of the Constitution, is that just because you're given powers, there is a fine line as to how you use those powers. And my plea would be that, as I used to say to them previously, even when I was head of the administration, that we just do things mindful of the fact that Botswana is the democracy it is. Botswana are the people that we are, and I've always said we are different from others in the way we do things, and that has been proven over many years. Let us not slip backwards. Let us not undermine what we have achieved to this date. So everyone who's in authority, my appeal to them was to always remember our culture of both. And I'm not saying that if someone has broken the law, whoever it is, should not be confronted. But in everything we do in life, even when you have driven, maybe you may have a red car, a white car, a funny yellow car, driving along the road, and you exceed the speed limit, you would be stopped by a police officer if you've broken the speed limit. And I've met many people where a police officer has stopped them and just warned them, has not always fined them. So they are using their discretion and their compassion on how they deal with an offender. And that is something which is what we are like. We don't always come down with a hammer, even if you can use a hammer, but you don't always have to use a hammer. And that is what we are. What is about John?
Okay. In closing, your last words, sir, and I would love, and I think Botswana would like it out there, that you touched on the issue of Unity Down. He went all out to say whatever she had to say, and labeled you as one of the most feared people, who abused them, a leader that they couldn't talk under when you're still their president or when you're still their leader. Please, your last words, and then say something about that.
If that is what she said, it's extremely unfortunate, because I would assume her having been on the bench, a High Court judge, would not have been intimidated by anybody. So she invited me to campaign for her when she stood in her constituency. She was not successful in that. I offered her to be specially elected. She accepted. I offered her to be a minister. She accepted. At no time ever did she ever indicate to me what is being attributed to her now, to what she's being said. So then you have to look at what is behind it. Why is she doing it now? That somebody who gave her the step up in her political career, she would be turning against right now. I have said nothing until today about Unity Down. but I'm aware of the things she's been saying about me. That press release that they issued about Donald Trump was obviously her doing, trying to continue this campaign of hers. So she's trying to please somebody, and we know why, because 29 is coming up, and apparently the best way to ingratiate yourself with somebody for your future political career is to come out against Khama. But otherwise, I never had any differences with her, and I'm not going to also reveal now, because others I think have done it already, because I think it would be below the belt for me to do so, any issues that she had when she was a minister in my government. Those I will leave aside, because if one wanted to be nasty, one could bring those up, but I won't. Because again, this thing of mine of reconciliation and trying to hope that there'll be positive developments going future applies to everybody who's involved in this situation, not just between me and Masisi, but everybody. But if they choose to continue and they want to continue doing battle, that's fine, that's their choice.
Are you in for it? Okay.
I'm trying to give you an impression.
Okay.
I may not be succeeding. That I never started this, but I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Let me put it just like that. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
One last question. Last one. You bring up that issue that we never started it. Apparently, there's this talk that you wanted Masisi to make your brother vice president when he ascended. Is it true? And was there any agreement between you and Ramasisi? Any sort of agreement?
I've answered that.
Yes, you answered it.
I've answered, no, not today,
okay,
but in another publication, where I talked about the caucus, a vote in the BDP caucus. Because as we were going towards the election, just after the election, there was an amount of speculation about who would be the next vice president after Rekidikile. And there were a number of names being thrown around in the media. And I want to be honest and say to you that I also, at the time that the election was announced, the results of the election was announced, I was not completely sure in my own mind who it should be. So I did something which hasn't been done before. In that BDP caucus, I wanted to get a sense from them who they thought should be the vice president. Because whoever was going to be vice president was likely to continue to be the president of the country. So we had a secret poll there. And the result of that was not also conclusive, in that there were about 5, 6 names that came out. But leading the pack of names, there was no one who had a majority. In other words, if we were 30 in that meeting, that someone got 17 being a majority, clear majority. No, there was groupings. So leading the pack was Nonofo Molifi and TK. After them was Pelonomi Benson. After her was Masisi. And then there were a couple of others who I won't mention. I'm not mentioning their names because they each had one vote. And I could see that that one vote was them writing their own names on the paper. So I shared this with Park staff. And I said to him, look, I think I'm going to choose Masisi. And the reason being was that TK is my brother. It would be inappropriate and wrong for me to choose my brother as my vice president. Secondly, when it comes to Pelonomi and Nonofu, even though this country has gone a long way, it is a mature nation. Now, when I was vice president, I was Mohai's vice president, both of us coming from Sorori. When I chose Merafi, even though he was the MP for Mahalapi, but Nilumoto was Sorori. And I said, this thing on North-South was something in the distant past. But I just don't want to perpetuate a situation where someone will raise it and say, is it just Soroi people had? And so I thought, no, but I've worked with Masisi. When he was Minister of Presidential Affairs, I know during the public officer strike, he was very robust in standing up to the union's demands, as was the PSP then, Molale, and the Director of Public Service Management, Murupisi. So if I talked about a handful of people, where others, I must say, were a bit uncomfortable because some of the unions had been threatening them, we will tell Badila Kuso Baskale Topa unless la support for our demands. So some chose to be a bit quiet on it. But the people who were fully on board, we must stand up to these public officers. We cannot meet the demands because it's not affordable, were those ones, including the then Minister of Presidential Affairs, Masisi. So I thought no, and my interactions with him, based on what I said to you earlier, I did not detect anything of his character that I'm seeing today, nothing at all. And so when I said to Park Sore, now I'm going for Masisi, Park said to me, not that one. And I said, why? And he told me why. I'm not going to repeat it to you. Okay. So then he said, but let's talk again tomorrow. So the next day, I called him or he called me. And he said, Kana, you're the president, I think I should just allow you to choose who you feel comfortable with. But so don't tell him. I want to talk to him and just indicate to him some of what I see Gile Parks as his faults and bring them to his attention and indicate to him how lucky he is to get this honor. And then he came back and he told me he had done that. I wasn't there. And then he said to me, Gana, he told him the result of the poll. I didn't tell anyone else other than Parks. And he said he told him the result of the poll. And Masisi was feeling, I don't know what the word I can find. There were others before me. And maybe, I can't find another word, maybe out of compensation or what have you, now I'll make TK my vice president. Abulela Parks. That's what Parks told me. And I think he should also, to show that we will work together, I think he should be chairman when the Congress comes up in 2015. This was 2014. So then, he then said to me, he met TK the next afternoon. I think it was on a Saturday, because he said he was attending a funeral that morning. And then he told TK, Kana Masisi Are is going to make you his vice president. And then he said, I expect that Masisi will contact you and inform you as well at some stage. Which I believe he did. Lena Masisi unambolela helaya. But we're going to make TK his vice president. And so I said, well, I get it, that is his prerogative. Then, when 2015 came, Masisi decided to stand for the chairmanship. TK had also intended to stand for the chairmanship. Because I get it, he'd been told, oh yeah, you must go ahead and stand for the chairmanship, so that when you have Masisi as VP, TK as chairman, then eventually, when he takes over, it will then be quite smooth for the year. They've been working together in this role. So I must admit I was a bit surprised because I knew of their agreement. And TK was not happy. He was not happy. He was very upset actually, because he felt let down. But now I'm still going to stand. So give him now you put me in a difficult situation. Two of you are standing for chairmanship. There were others who stood. But you two, one of you is my vice president, one of you is my brother. It's not going to look good. So give it a TK. Why don't you give way? Which he did reluctantly. So he pulled out of the race. To stand. But all along, despite that, after that, there must have been assurances given to him, according to him, from Masisi. But I just want to say one thing very clearly to you. I have been president for 10 years. I know it's the prerogative of the president to choose who he wants as VP and his ministers. I did it, Mohai did it, Masiri did it, my father did it. And despite the fact that everyone will have expectations, you can ask anybody. If I ask you, who would you like to be VP? I'd ask you, who would you like to see as a VP? You may have two different answers. Everyone would have their own idea who they would want to see as VP. But I know, having been there as a president, that the president has the right to choose who he wants as his vice president. And even if I had hoped, it would have been nice to see TK as VP. Of course, it's my brother, what else would I say? But I'm realistic and mature enough to know that if he was not chosen, that's the name of the game. The fact that he was made a minister, he was also fortunate that he was chosen to be a minister. So it's his prerogative, and I'm adult enough to know that if there are some ministers there I wouldn't have chosen myself, and a vice president or whoever, it's nothing to do with me anymore. It's up to him. And I would be so silly and immature to be holding it against him that he didn't choose my brother. TK knows, as well as I do, that when you go into politics, he can be chosen by the people to be an MP, or they may not choose him. That's the name of the game. And you shouldn't be sulking if you didn't make it. And he is not. And I take my hat off to him, because I know what was said to him did not come about. But he has accepted it, and he's okay with it. So it's nothing to do with me. If anybody should be upset, it should be TK. But he's not. So I have no right or business to be trying to Kingala on his behalf. So I have moved on. I'm doing what I'm doing based on what I told you before, caring for people.
Okay, I think that's brought us to the conclusion of our interview. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.